Hello! Today we're really going to dive in to the topic of PTSD. We're exploring the real effects of it on your brain and seeing why it's so hard to cure. I have PTSD myself, and with most things in life, I researched the hell out of it after my diagnosis because I love understanding how things work, and I think knowing the mechanics behind a problem really help in not only comprehending it to its highest extent, but also coping and healing. You know what I mean? No band-aids here. I'm hoping this will help others that have it, or will help people that have loved ones that have it, because God knows it's hard on them too, being woken up at 2 a.m. to someone screaming next to them. I'll get into healing and coping methods in the future, but 2 important things I can say about it for now are: 1, don't be discouraged and hate yourself. You'll see from this video that you are the way you are for a very frustrating reason. It isn't you. And 2, don't label yourself as a PTSD sufferer. Don't let the diagnosis define your character. You are still you. You are a person that has PTSD, and it can be treated. I honestly believe it can be cured with real knowledge and perseverance. So the first thing I need to cover is the limbic system. This is the system in your brain that's in charge of stress and stress response. It also deals with memory, which will make sense very soon. The limbic system is made up of 3 main parts. The hippocampus is the rememberer in simplest terms. It files away events for future use, assessing what the threat was and how it was processed, how it was dealt with, and if it may be a threat if encountered down the road again. The amygdala is the reactor. This is the part responsible for the physical stress response. Just think of it as the little guy at the forefront freaking out about the possible threat, preparing the body for survival mode just in case. He stays in freak out mode as the VPC and hippocampus work on analyzing the situation. Ventromedial prefrontal cortex. This is the boss of the system. It runs the place, calls shots, and manages the other parts. So in short, you have 3 main players: thinking, emotion, and memory. Now let's look at the limbic system during a normal everyday event. My puppy Kuma actually gave me a great example for normal limbic function. So I'm cooking, right? She puts her head in the fridge as I'm about to close the door. She gets a gentle head squish and quickly pulls back. After a bit of time, I go to open the fridge again. This time she gets very close but keeps her head out of the squish zone. What occurred in her brain in the split second was the limbic system gathering and processing data. The amygdala did its job by telling her, "Pain, get the f*** out of there." The ventromedial prefrontal cortex assesses the situation and says, "It's okay, it was just the door. Putting my head here makes the door squish it." This tells the amygdala to calm down, and finally, the hippocampus stores the information for future use. This is what made her avoid the door the second time. All kinds of events get stored in the same way in the hippocampus. That's why when a traumatic event happens, you can be mentally damaged from many different situations, not just those that cause physical pain. There's even something called CPTSD, complex PTSD, that is brought on by years of emotional abuse, and I'll get into that later too. Now, during a traumatic event, the limbic system experiences a lot of stress, similar to your car's engine overheating. Let's say you see someone get eaten by a dinosaur. Trigger warning. The ventromedial prefrontal cortex and hippocampus are shocked. They are in overdrive trying to process this event. The system is in chaos. Think about your own reaction in an alarming situation. You feel alert, stressed out, hyperactive, and then exhausted and emotionally drained. This is exactly what your limbic system is experiencing: a system overload and subsequent crash. The boss can't tell the amygdala to calm down because it isn't functioning properly, so the amygdala is stuck in a state of panic. The ventromedial prefrontal cortex actually decreases in volume. It is in a state of disorder. The hippocampus also decreases in volume over time after the event happens. And the files aren't being stored correctly. The files are corrupt. So here's something crazy I learned recently. The scientists out there have removed the amygdala in some animals like mice. These specimens then showed no fear and could hang out with cats with zero signs of stress. That really illustrates the power of the brain. I want to say it'd be great for people to have this done, but obviously these systems were put in place for a reason. Of course, humans are exposed to things that nature never intended. But that's all a story for later. Anyway, an event greater than normal or even above average is overwhelming for the limbic system. By above average, I mean a perceived threat like witnessing a fist fight. For a healthy adult brain, this is no big deal. It will get filed into the hippocampus. No big deal, not enough to cultivate PTSD. But for a non-emotionally developed child brain, witnessing a fistfight is much scarier. Because the hippocampus doesn't have the hefty database we adults have, right? Again, using dogs as an example, that's why it's super important to introduce your puppy to as many people and situations as you can, as early as you can, because this develops the hippocampus. And that's why unsocialized dogs are very fearful. So anyway, the amygdala is left without direction and is screaming help. This is why symptoms of PTSD include hypervigilance and feeling anxious. This is also why panic attacks and symptoms can arise seemingly unprovoked, because your amygdala is in a constant state of stress and doesn't know what a threat is and what isn't a threat without its companions. Let's say a girl was raped in a parking garage. She would probably have anxiety walking through a parking garage because the amygdala is hypervigilant. If you were listening to the Beatles when you witnessed the dinosaur eat the man, you might feel anxiety hearing the Beatles later. These are not dangerous elements in themselves, but the poor amygdala just doesn't know. It's on its own. This is also an after effect of the hippocampus's storage crash. It now can't determine past from present memories. Crazy, right? And it explains a lot of symptoms. Remember how I said the hippocampus and VPC both lose volume? Well, guess what happens to the amygdala physically? It increases. It swells. The piece of your brain that manifests emotion, particularly fear, is now swollen, hyperactive. This little fact is going to be important to remember for later videos. So that's why PTSD is such a pain. Your brain's hardwiring has been compromised. Always remember that. When a stressful event happens, you have to process it in order to move forward from it. When you don't, it lingers and hurts brain functioning. Let's say you have a computer virus, a really slow computer. It doesn't go away on its own. It takes reprogramming. It takes a reboot, disk clean, same thing. Trying to tell yourself to forget something or get over something is as useful as telling your brain to forget the color red or that red is blue. We all know how powerful the brain is, but seem to forget this all the time. So I hope that makes sense. Your stress response system is dysfunctional because it was overloaded. This is why I want to tell you this. It's important to know the roots of a problem to truly understand and heal, and I'm showing you this to help you understand that there is a real chemical imbalance happening in your mainframe. I read once that one function of dreams are like a virtual coping method, a method of immersing yourself into an experience mentally, much safer than physically, right? To help you cope and process the situation. Because remember, we must process an event to heal from it. Thanks for watching, and I hope you learned a lot. And there will be more on PTSD in later videos. Bye! Bonus fact! The word hippocampus comes from the word hippos, horse, and campos, sea monster. It's named after the mythological Grecian creature, the hippocamp, or seahorse, because of its shape. Yeah, I don't really see a resemblance either.